What is the average amount of chocolate chips per each Chips Ahoy cookie? My hypothesis rationale. Although I found an online article that stated Chips Ahoy began promising 32 chips per cookie in the 80s, I found that to be very hard to believe. Chips Ahoy cookies are very small, and that amount of chocolate chips per cookie seems to be quite large. I found this an interesting topic because I was hoping that there would be that many chips per cookie, but I was not too hopeful. The odds seem to be against the small cookies. My hypothesis was, I believe that there will be less than 26 chips in each Chips Ahoy cookie. To get a random sample of Chips Ahoy cookies, I will assign each box their own number. Then I will use the random integer function on my calculator to generate a number between 1 and 10. I will then use the same process to choose which boxes and cookies to use in the experiment. I used the random integer function on my calculator to get a number, 4. I then picked the boxes that corresponded with that number on the shelf. I generated another random integer to select which cookies to use in my sampling process. This time the number was 8, so I took every 8th cookie. Once I cycled through the first box, I continued on to the second, until I had a total of 30 cookies. Since each package was family sized, they each contained 45 cookies. I pulled out every 8th cookie within the Chips Ahoy containers. I then placed each individual cookie in a strainer and soaked it in water until the soft cookie part dissolved and the chocolate chips were left. This part was kind of disgusting. The mean came out to be 24.43. We are 90% confident that the interval from 23.80 to 25.05 captures the mean number of chocolate chips per each Chips Ahoy cookie. We are 95% confident that the interval from 23.68 to 25.51 captures the mean number of chocolate chips per each Chips Ahoy cookie. We are 99% confident that the interval from 23.43 to 25.44 captures the mean number of chocolate chips per each Chips Ahoy cookie. So my null hypothesis was the mean is greater than or equal to 26, and my alternate was the mean is less than 26. So I calculated my standard test score, t, which came out to be negative 4.274. I then plugged that number into the equation of TCDF of negative E99 to negative 4.274. I got an answer of 1.22 times 10 to the negative 4th, which meant that I rejected the null. I interpreted this decision as we have evidence that the mean number of chocolate chips per Chips Ahoy cookie is not greater than or equal to 26. So for the rejection region method, my hypotheses are the same. T sub c is negative 1.699, and I got that from the chart. My t value was negative 4.27. And on my curve, I marked down negative 1.699 and shaded to the left of it since it is a left tail test. And negative 4.274 is in the rejection region, so that means we reject the null. Looking at my interpretation for my hypothesis test, I was very accurate. I believe that there would be less than 26 chips per each chocolate chip cookie, and my guess was correct. Based on the data I collected, I rejected the null. This meant that I have evidence through my sampling which showed that the mean number of chocolate chips per each Chips Ahoy cookie was not greater than or equal to 26 chips. I believe that the sample I selected was a pretty good representation of the population. I feel as though each cookie box should have roughly the same amount of chocolate chips per cookie, but there is always that possibility that the two that I selected had lower chips than the normal box, but overall, I think it was pretty good. If I could change one thing about my experiment, I probably would have selected more variety of cookies. Since I only had 2 boxes, there wasn't much variety. I should have selected more and then selected a broader amount of cookies from each box. My execution throughout my entire experiment stayed pretty true to what I stated in the beginning. It might have been tedious to do all of that, but I did stick with it and not take any shortcuts. The hardest part of my experiment was actually dissolving each individual cookie and counting the amount of chocolate chips. Since the chocolate chips are super small, I had to make sure that I didn't break any apart, because if I did so, it would ruin the amount of chocolate chips per cookie. It was very tedious, and it actually ended up being extremely gross. The easiest part of my experiment was honestly just buying the cookies. Everything else took so much work and was so tedious that there wasn't really any other easy part. I think someone who works in the Chips Ahoy corporate would be interested in my information. Just because they've been promising 26 chips since the 80s, they might be able to take the information that I've collected to maybe better advertise their cookies so that they're not promising more than what they give.